Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Hello all, and welcome to another episode of the App Advisory Show. I'm delighted to have Adam Croney here from Thomas Westcott. Good morning, just about morning. Adam, how are you?
Just about morning, Matt. Yeah, good. Thanks very much.
Good. So tell us, what's your role at Thomas Westcott?
So I'm a partner at Thomas Westcott, and I lead our digital services offering. So anything that's sort of digital or tech-based that our clients see at some point or another comes through me. Okay,
great stuff. So pretty exciting and ever-changing, and still like quite an early part of this world in general for everybody, not just you guys. Mm-hmm. Still quite a lot to go at with this world. The point of this podcast is to share quite a bit with other firms maybe thinking about going down this route, etc. So let's hear a little bit about your personal, how you got to where you're at, if you like. So how you ended up being in digital from wherever you started. So a little bit about your history would be good to hear.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Try and keep this brief for you, but I ended up in this whole sort of accountancy world almost by accident. So, you know, my early background was psychology and mental health. Then led me to a few years working in the mental health space in the NHS. So I sort of come to this from a people angle. I'm more interested in the people than the numbers, but I sort of in the accountancy world almost by accident. But I'm not somebody that loves sitting behind a computer, you know, spending the whole day looking at spreadsheets. I'd far rather be talking to people and talking about the sort of things that are troubling them, or the sort of things they're wanting to achieve, or the things that are on their mind. And it just so happens that now talking to business owners about that sort of stuff, it's slightly different to the conversations I was having 10 years ago, but it's still talking to people about the things that are important to them. I found myself working in PricewaterhouseCoopers, did 8 years in PwC working within their audit team, and then moved over to Thomas Westcott at the end of 2018. And then, as you're aware, I've sort of been in this digital space for about the last 18 months or so. Okay,
so just thinking about that from the mental health and the well-being, is that what you originally trained in, or were you doing a role there and then sort of accountancy? It's pretty like probably not many people probably done that sort of bridge. So I'm just intrigued as to what happened there.
Yeah, so I originally trained in psychology. You know, did all the sort of academic studies there. Yeah, and that was going to be the career path. And then actually, that I sort of started to realise, whilst I really liked that sort of stuff. And it's slightly odd thinking about it, there wasn't quite as much time talking with people as you actually find it in my role today. You know, much more was being tucked away, paperwork, internal reviews, and I thought, gosh, I'm not talking to people, and that's the reason I got into this. So then I've been in PwC's what was then a sort of public sector value for money practice, and that was how I made the first step. And then think from there.
Interesting, very interesting. Good to know. So came to Thomas Westcott sort of 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, that sort of time frame, 2018, digital last 18 months. So what happened internally in that period up until you got involved in digital? Was it something that was brewing around? Was it what was going on?
No, it's I would be doing the firm and the team a disservice if I made it sound like it was, some great work that I'd done in the last 18 months. We already had, what was probably at that stage hundreds and hundreds of clients were on the cloud, a mix of Xero and QuickBooks, historically been coming from a sort of MTD angle, which I don't think is unique to us.
No, pretty common scenario, really.
And, in those sort of first 12 months or so, I probably, if I'm honest, probably a bit of that is sort of finding my feet when you've gone from big four firm into large regional firm. it takes a little while to find out how that sort of world works and where you fit in there. And, you know, there's a bit of time sort of building relationships and trying some different things. But you know, I was really keen to get involved with the digital side of things, and have been really pleased that that's where I've spent a bit of time in the last 18 months or so.
So did your audit background help? Do you think that's helped with sort of the systems and thinking about those business processes? Has that sort of come to the fore a little bit?
Yeah, no, I think there's an element of that that's been helpful, thinking about the sort of processes and workflows and things like that. I think also it's the fact that from an audit background, you're just used to multiple different stakeholders and each audit as a project. And actually within the digital space, you've got a number of different stakeholders, you know, varying levels internally, clients, suppliers, partners.
Yeah.
And everything's a bit of a project. You know, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with you know, so much to do, so much you want to change. And actually what you've got to do, you know, let's try and take some sort of bite-sized chunks, try and tackle some of these smaller projects. And that's certainly where there's some crossover in those skills.
Yeah, great. Okay. So have you got a team now, Thomas Westcott? Like, what's been happening with the digital sort of evolution for you guys?
Yeah, so we've now got a team that's sort of 6 or 7 of us at a senior level. You know, it's sort of 6 or 7 of us that are making some of the key decisions around where we go next. You know, and I've got the sort of delegated responsibility from our management boards, who are super bought in, you know, really supportive of, you know, really wanting to progress in this space. And then as we've got 17 different offices across the Southwest, we've got a sort of network of champions in each of those offices, just so we've got a real sort of link into how things actually work on the ground. Because while you might think we've got one way of doing things, there will always be small differences in how things work in different offices. And it's really important that we've got something that fits in that space.
Yeah, I think with any firm that's got merger and acquisition, there's always that sort of hangover of, you know, silo processes, silo methods. That's always there, right? It's as much as you can try and transform it, there's just little hangover pieces all the time, which sometimes don't come about until we start to review these processes and look at the digital stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely right.
Okay, so from a digital perspective, bearing in mind it's sort of been 18 months, 2 years for you, why are you so personally invested and involved and enjoy it? Because I think we've known each other quite a while now, but I think I've seen from you that you've really enjoyed this whole process, and as much as the internal and the external, you know, there's client wins, but there's also firm wins when you start to progress with it. Like, what's been enjoyable from your perspective?
So, you know, I think the main thing for me is that this is such a true, authentic thing for the firm to be doing, even though it feels as if it's all a little bit new and a little bit scary at times. So, you know, Thomas Westcott as a firm has always been about supporting, you know, SME business, has always been about aligning themselves with their clients locally. I think historically we've seen that as, you know, talking about geography and being and working in the same areas as our clients. But we've always wanted to support small business, grow, have a bit of a sort of cradle to grave type of service, you know, one-stop shop, can help with all the queries. And that's come from, you know, our roots, which are more in a sort of general practice sort of feel. And that's evolved over recent years. So we've now got all the sort of, you know, specialist verticals you'd expect. But some of those general practice values of being genuinely interested in our clients, forming genuine, deep, trusted relationships, and being able to help them look ahead and grow and answer broad questions about the business, well, that's exactly the sort of stuff that this digital advisory space is seeking to support and facilitate. Yeah. You know, I've been really trying to stress that. You know, we've got some team members that have been in the business for decades, and the skills they've got and what makes them so good at their job are exactly the same transferable skills that, you know, you need in the digital space. It's the, you know, the relationship skills, the curiosity, the ability to look ahead, the thinking more broadly about a business. So they're huge crossover for us, and that's why it's just felt like a really natural, authentic move for us.
Yeah, I think we can link this whole digital world to newbies and millennials and all this type of stuff, and that's because it's on a smartphone, and we need to be able to use the internet and stuff like that to a level. But actually, digital without experience, that's the key bit, right? You do need though that foresight, that having been through this something similar with another business and giving those insights, that's really useful. If you can get the data to hand and talk around those, bring those insights out. That's why I always feel that I think some firms are going down the route of, I'm going to put a load of youngsters in because they know how to use the tech. Like for me, it's almost like a buddy scheme. Yeah, we can get them to really get the systems to integrate and get the data correct. That's brilliant. But the insightful piece, can we get somebody who knows what these numbers mean and have seen it numerous times with maybe hundreds of businesses over the years, and can you merge that? So for me, it's like a buddying type of world that we need to get into. Digital usage, absolutely. Insights on how businesses run and some of the experiences and understanding what the client is going through, massively valuable. So you get that duo right, I think any firm's going to be in a good position with that.
Yeah, when I talk to the team about it, and we're having conversations internally, we're often sort of recognizing the real contradiction you've got in that it's, when we think digital, we think sort of it must be latest technology. It's all kind of AI, machine learning, and it's absolutely all about the answers that the computer tells us are the right answers.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is actually it's nothing to do with the tech, and it's all to do with the quality of the conversation we're having. And the quality of the conversation is based upon the quality of the relationship. And you can't do one without the other. But if you only had one, you'd have the relationship every day, because you can have a relationship that allows you to look ahead.
Yeah.
Actually, the data that comes from the tech, actually the data without the relationship is not going to get us very far.
Yeah, you can enhance as well the relationship with the data, and actually you can really forge a relationship with the data, but you still need to be able to build a relationship, and that's through conversation and getting closer to your clients, which it allows you to do that, right? So and getting more relative with the time frame with clients as well. I think that's really, really useful. You become very relevant to them because you're talking about something that's happening, maybe in the last few weeks rather than 6 months ago or whatever it might be, which is really on their radar and not easily forgotten that when it's only a couple of weeks ago or 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it might be. So that's interesting then. So from your perspective, it's about really harboring what you've already got and delivering more and using some of that experience and getting digital to underpin that a little bit. So just on that theme around digital, like apps, sort of ask this question every single session. Maybe an app that you're really enjoying working with within the firm. Is there an app that you personally like? It's a pretty much open book. It can be a couple. What have you got on your radar, Adam?
So, we are seeing some really good success currently with both Dext Prepare and with Precision. That's great for what is our bread and butter client, small bookkeeping, massive volume of VAT returns, and really liking Precision just for making sure we've got our own house in order.
Yeah.
That's something that we've been, we come on to talk about it in a minute. The progress we've made has been slower than I would have expected, but it's been the right thing to do, because it's been really easy to sort of knee jerk to go out and try and win new work and push new initiatives. But we really need to make sure that the foundation of this pyramid is strong. And that's included making sure that we're really giving the best service to our current clients, recognizing that we've been on a bit of a journey ourselves. Now that's the one that we're using at sort of scale. Fathom is another one that that I'm really excited about at the moment, simply because it's the functionality combined with the sort of user interface means that it makes sense to the people that I'm talking, I'm talking with. I understand the forecasting, I understand what it's trying to do, but most importantly, my clients really get it as well.
Great.
And see when you can see what's the net cash impact of some of these micro forecasts, that really brings a message home to clients in a way that they seem to like.
Great. So picking up on Dex Precision, I think the reason Dex Precision works, in my opinion, I think is twofold. Get your own house in order. But you also start to define what good is. And when you can define what good is and what your level of quality you want, talking to external clients becomes a lot easier, right? Because you know what good is. When you've got multiple different bookkeeping processes, multiple different people doing it in different ways, it's really hard to define what your level is and how you want it done, where I think it allows you to start to define that. And then when you're speaking to clients who are doing their own bookkeeping and you're seeing their records, you can then define to them, that isn't the quality, this is what quality looks like. And then, because I think we're seeing quite a few, and you've been in some of the group sessions we've been running, where we're seeing firms start to win some bookkeeping because they're able to show that there's a better way of doing this and you're not up to speed, and also not being impolite in the process, right? Using the tools to show this to people. So I think that is the first thing with Dex Precision. It allows you to start to make sure you know what good is, which means you're much easier then to talk to clients about what good looks like in terms of bookkeeping and regularity and quality of data, etc.
Yeah, and we're also using some of the flow functionality within Precision to, once we know what that good looks like, being able to standardize the process that gets there so we can then roll that out at scale. Yeah,
absolutely. Brilliant. And then the Fathom, it's that interpretation. I have, in general, Fathom does come up quite regularly. So however they've progressed the product and whatever they've been doing behind the scenes to get that messaging and that output correct seems to be working. So two good tools. Any others, or was that what you were covering?
No, those are the two we've got at the moment that seem to be working really well. We've got a process at the moment where we've got a number of different things which we're dabbling in, but they trying to we're almost trying to qualify things out rather than qualify them in, simply because we've got quite a change journey to go on. Trying to get near enough 300 people across 17 offices on board with changes and ways of doing things. We're not going to be able to do that if we've got a dozen different tools we're trying to get people to use. So there are a number of things we've looked at that look great. Certainly not to do a disservice to some of the other great apps out there, but at the moment what matters for us is that we get a small number of things that we've got a majority of the team feel really confident using. Yeah, absolutely. What have you found? Two questions coming up really. Like, what's been not so enjoyable? What have you found difficult with cloud? And the second question is, what if you were starting over and you knew what you knew now? What would you do differently? So, what have you found? What's been not so enjoyable is probably the phrase I'd like to use. Like, what have you found more difficult than you anticipated? If somebody's about to start this, it's not all a bed of roses. It's difficult. Change is difficult, right? So. Yeah, exactly. I think for us, one of the most challenging things has been the quality of our internal underlying data. Yes. You often find yourself thinking, oh, that'd be great if we knew every client that looks like this and kind of sounds like that. But actually, we weren't aware now of the questions we maybe want a practice management software to answer. So we're putting in the answers over the last 10 years because we didn't know what questions in the future we'd like to know. And there's always that balancing act, because what we're trying to do is run a business, not necessarily keep a database of everything you could ever want to know about a client. But it would be great to know, what clients do we have in a certain sector using a certain system with directors of a certain age. That sort of information would be really nice to know now, if only that would be the case. In general, the quality of data across the accounting profession at that sort of practice management level, like I saw it in MTD Original,
And I think there's two things to this for anybody who's listening. Is this is a big old job to get all this data cleansed, and what we tend to find is people concentrate, certainly in MTD phase one, people concentrate on getting the data together. So I'm going to send spreadsheets out to everybody, they're going to fill in, I get the data, but they didn't fix the data processes. So what that meant, it was up to date the minute they filled in that spreadsheet, but was out of date within hours. So if you're out there and you think about client segmentation and client data quality, yes, get your data together, but fix the processes so you're getting that updated as well. And I think we've seen, I spoke to a couple of firms a few weeks ago who I spoke to during MTD, and they were like, we've got to do the same thing again, sort of 3 years later, and get all this data in. So it's a big undertaking, really valuable if you can get it for exactly the reasons you've said. We've just done a really good project with this client, whether it's corporate finance, whether it's new systems, whether it's bookkeeping, and we'd really like to target all the other clients who look like that. That's the dream, isn't it? Because from a marketing perspective, it's like, okay, they look like you, these are the problems they had, this is what we did, and this is how they feel. Brilliant, now we can do that. So I think that's a common issue, but data in general across profession is pretty naff normally around practice management.
Well, and the challenge you get if you don't have it in order is, well, how do you find the answer? Well, you go out and survey the team, but then inevitably you end up with a bit of survey fatigue.
Yeah,
it's absolutely not unique to us, and it's what you find generally.
Yeah,
but that's then the limitation, and that you find yourself on the back foot. If you've done a great piece of work for a client, you want to be shouting about it for everyone else that it's relevant to as soon as you can, not once you can then collate the data.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think there'll be people listening who will definitely be that's a relevant point to them as well. Okay, so if you were starting over, I mean, I'm going to bring a couple of things that I remember us discussing way back, but if you're starting over with cloud, what would you look at differently? What would you approach differently, or what would your approach be, in fact, knowing what you know now?
I think that I personally was guilty of being too caught up in the latest, shiniest solution, and was thinking, if only we had a partnership with sort of XYZ supplier or solution, that would be the answer to all the problems. And I remember being frustrated with some of your content, Matt, because you led me in with what are the top 10 things you need to be using, and I thought, great, this is the answer I've been looking for. And you were just trying to tell me that actually I was trying to answer the wrong question, and I thought, you absolutely don't understand. You don't understand where I am, and I go away trying to find the answer. And then maybe 6-9 months pass, and I've got to come full circle. And I thought, gosh, you could have saved me 6 to 9 months worth of searching had I been willing to listen. And yeah, we've come round to thinking, to realizing this is much more about listening and understanding client problems and client needs, and then being able to devise tailored solutions, some of which, or many of which, may require a digital solution that's available. Mm-hmm. Not all of them will. And if we're talking about being relationship kind of is the foundation, it's slightly presumptive for us to form partnerships with solutions before we know what the problems are. Yeah,
I was going to bring exactly that up, because I remember us talking about that. And this is quite a way back, and I said, oh, so what's the approach? And you're like, well, I'm going to be speaking to XYZ and ABC. I remember saying, like, wow, that's a lot to bring in. And I think people think this whole app advisory and digital thing is about, I'm going to get this massive tool belt of kit, and I'm going to just open it all up to the client. But as you saw with that clickbait sort of content that wasn't it really? Here's the top 10, and it just said, actually, your top 10 is dependent on what your clients tell you they need. Really, is the just of that video. But ultimately, you're dead right. It's like, what do our clients need? It could be that all our clients need a certain type of technology, and then it's up to us to start picking that. So, your precisions and your invoice automation, that sort of makes sense. It's going to be a large volume of those, but picking the other apps, it might be 1% of your client base, it might be 80% of your client base, it could be 100%. That's really hard to start talking to clients to find out what they actually want. So you're much better investing the time in talking to the clients to see what the problems are, and then your own app stack will start to present itself really based on what your client base is saying they need. So yeah, I do remember that conversation. I remember you saying, I remember coming off thinking, oh wow, he's going to go buy everything and have all the swag, and this is going to be a tough gig really.
And actually the benefit of doing it the right way, and let's get some simple processes in place, and let's pick off a couple of smaller projects. It's also not quite so overwhelming when you start out. I remember at one stage having a sort of dozen or so projects that I was trying to kick off all at the same time, and thinking, gosh, I'm not sure which to prioritize.
Yeah. And
well, you're in that position that if you've got 12 priorities, actually you've got none.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you haven't got one. Absolutely. The other thing I was going to say, just around that, is now you've got an awareness of how you can help people, and there's an ecosystem that can help. I think what you guys have worked quite well on is now having some services. So you're talking to the client. There's an expression they want something or need some help with something. What you're now told with is some services to offer where they can qualify themselves in or out of that service. Which means that I think that's some of it, isn't it? Is that it gives you that you've got that sort of barrier to say, yes, we can help. It's a different service. We've got new digital services which help in this space, which means then that you can lead the client rather than the client leading you because you don't have a service to offer. It's like, well, I better just get something back to them and run through that. Mm-hmm. So I think, although you're not armed with loads of apps, you're armed with some services now, which means you'll be working with clients who value it. And I think that's really important for any firm going down this route, really.
Well, it's also really helpful internally, Matt, because often the challenge is people think, gosh, I'm never going to be able to keep up to date with all of these apps that are constantly changing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
But if we're talking about credit control, or we're talking about efficiency of receiving payments, or we're talking about management information, those potential challenges, there will be the same categories of challenges. That those aren't going to change significantly overnight. It might be that the solution changes, but if we become a sort of problem first and listening first, and train our team on what to listen for, actually the solution is something that can then come later.
Yeah, absolutely. And the solution, you could learn about all the apps today, not have an opportunity for one of those apps for 12 months. You've got to go and learn it again anyway. So it's and that app, the core app around digital finance function, hasn't massively changed in the 4 or 5 years. I think we feel it has. Yes, there's more features. Yes, it does more, but ultimately in that sort of space, expenses and payment reconciliation has definitely improved, but the rest of it is a similar app set as to what it was at the start. So let's optimize those. Okay, final question. What does in 12 months' time, what does your team, your services, what are you hoping to have achieved in that period of time? I won't come back on exactly 12 months later and ask you, but what are you hoping? What would be good, and what do you hope to get in place in that time?
I am hoping that we have got some really clearly embedded services, and that if I went to another office and talked to somebody that wasn't in the sort of digital team, and said, what are the 8 to 10 services we've got, I'd want someone to be able to answer 6 to 8 of those 8 to 10.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of know what they are. So it becomes part of the fabric of how we do things, and it becomes part of the sort of identity we've got in terms of the sort of questions we can answer. I'd also like to see us moving on in the sort of data science coding type of space. Okay. I think that's super interesting, and it's when you talk to different people about digital, and that can often mean some different things to different people.
Completely. Clearly,
the conversations you and I have had, it's clear that both of us have got a significant overlap in the interpretation. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's huge opportunities when we can start to get people with some really good sort of data science or coding. I predict that it will be less than 12 months until we've got somebody that codes in something like Python for a significant proportion of their week.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. I think that's interesting insight, and you know, I wouldn't bet against any type of different type of resource being in any firm really in this digital space. And a really good point on terms like cloud and digital. If you're in different elements of world, cloud and digital, you know, have a different meaning. So you're dead right. In our world, it's very relevant because it's all about cloud accounting and digital adoption. But that can mean something entirely different if you go into other realms of business. Adam, that's been really good. Thank you so much for your time. Really good insights there, and people listening who are either going through this or thinking about going through this will have picked up quite a lot. Any listeners out there or watchers, you can subscribe on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify and all the other platforms that we're on. So please do. But for today, Adam, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.